I sat next to Melinda in the classroom. She used to be my best friend in kindergarten, but now she rarely looked at me. It was dangerous to look at me. People were afraid that they would catch what I had, if they did. The ugliness, that's what I called it. I got it sometime around my 12th birthday. That's when I noticed. And when everyone else did. I was probably the last one to catch on, to figure it out, that I was disgusting. Tracy was the first one to use that word, disgusting. It was in the locker room, when I was exposed for everyone to see. From that day on, I changed my clothes in the public restroom. But I couldn't hide it. Tracy and her friends made sure to remind me of that on a daily basis. On my other side was a large window. I was lucky enough to sit next to it, so that I didn't need to feel surrounded. Mr. Adrian talked passionately about some long-ago battle. I stared out the window, didn't really listen. It was spring, and the schoolyard was filled with children playing in the sun. There was a little girl that reminded me of myself when I was her age. She was dancing with her classmates, having fun. I pitied her. She was just a few years away from learning she got the ugliness. Soon, she would live in the shadows, just like me, I thought. And she wouldn't enjoy dancing anymore, because by then, dancing would mean something else. Victor leaned against the wall to the gymnasium, close to where they had built one of the new cell towers. He tried to hide a cigarette every time someone walked by. He was like me, living in the shadows. We weren't friends or anything, but we stood in a corner and talked once during a mandatory school party. He told me that he had a gun in his locker. I don't know why I never told anyone about that. Maybe I liked him, although not romantically, I think. No, that kind of love was a foreign concept to me. I told him I wrote poetry, mostly about death. He said he liked it too, so I asked who his favorite poet was. He told me about his favorite metal band instead.
"A Million on My Soul."
Tracy whispered to Rebecca, interrupting my thoughts.
"That's the song I'll do my number to. Just wait until you see my dress. It's going to be fabulous. But I'm nervous as hell, although it's..."
She was talking about the talent show later this day. The entire school was on edge because of it, waiting for it with anticipation. I looked forward to it as well, but only because I could then disappear into the crowd sitting in the stand in the gymnasium.
Quiet back there. I don't...
Mr. Adrian interrupted, just for himself to be interrupted by the bell declaring lunchtime. Everyone hastily got up from their seats and flooded the hallway. My classmates were loud and noisy. Their cacophony, exaggerated movements, and carefree laughter gave me a cold sweat. It suffocated me. I tried to sneak outside without being noticed, but it was always a challenge. I felt like a cichlid, swimming among a pack of sharks, although everyone else would probably have called me a whale. I usually locked myself inside one of the toilets and stayed there until everyone had left for the canteen. But this time, when I opened the door to the toilet, Tracy was in there, applying lip gloss in front of the mirror. She yelled so loud, "Sorry." I was just about to close the door when she grabbed my hand.
I knew it!
Tracy said. She pulled me inside and yelled for Jacqueline and Rebecca, who immediately came running.
"She tried to sneak in there with me. I told you she was a fucking dyke. Didn't I say that like last week?"
I tried to shake off her hand, but they pulled me inside.
"Disgusting,"
said Jacqueline.
"I bet she's all wet down there."
Tracy turned on the faucet.
"No, please."
I hated myself. Why did I always beg?
"I'm sorry. I didn't mean to walk in on you. I promise."
"Shut up, you fucking dyke."
The panic kicked in, and I tried to push my way toward the door, but it was too crowded with all four of us inside the small bathroom, and they pushed me back.
"Let's help her out.
Tracy cupped her hand under the running water.
"We're gonna make her real wet down there."
And then she threw the water at my crotch. I tried to cover myself with my hands, but they pulled them apart.
"Don't you like it?"
The water soaked into my pants and reached my skin. I tried to hold my tears back, and when they escaped the grip of my closed eyes, I turned my head so that they wouldn't see it. I looked up at the window close to the ceiling. The naked sun warmed my face. It was such a lovely day outside.
She's super horny. Look how wet we made her.
I concentrated on the blue sky, naively trying to escape with my mind. That's when I saw it. It happened in the blink of an eye. The blue sky vanished and was replaced by heavy, dark clouds. Tracy was just about to say something when thunder shook the entire building.
What the hell?
Rebecca stepped back in fright.
Wasn't it sunny just a second ago?
Jacqueline said, "They let me go. I fell down on the toilet seat."
Let's get out of here.
Tracy said,
I need to practice anyway.
I remained on the toilet seat for some time after they left, looking down at my wet pants. Then came the rain. It hit the window so hard I thought it was going to break. How could the sky just change like that? I stepped out after my pants had dried a little. Everyone had clustered around the windows in the hallway, trying to make out what was happening outside. The heavy rain made it impossible to see anything more than a few meters ahead. Still, I managed to distinguish a vague silhouette of a large mountain range in the distance. It wasn't supposed to be there. My mind rationalized it as something else. After all, it wasn't clear behind the inexplicable storm. There was a sense of confusion in the air, and everyone was talking over the top of each other, with Tracy's voice being the loudest. Mr. Adrian stepped out of the classroom, looking down at his phone.
Hey!
He roared once he looked up.
I want everyone to keep it down a few notches.
Everyone quieted down, although some still whispered among themselves.
Now,
Mr. Adrian continued.
does anyone have reception?
Those with phones pulled them out and checked the displays. The answer was no, and the second that became apparent, the confusion began to turn into great worry.
It's probably due to the storm,
Mr. Adrian said.
or the new cell towers. I heard they were going to test them today. Now stay here, okay? I'll go to the janitor's office and see if he knows what's going on.
He walked towards the doors at the end of the hallway. He mumbled to himself as he passed us. Where did this storm come from? No one other than myself seemed to have seen the blue sky vanish in the blink of an eye. Mr. Adrian walked out the doors, and everyone turned to the windows again, only stepping back in shock when the thunder shook the panes of glass. Although I was just as scared of the outside as everyone else, probably even more so given what I had witnessed, I decided to go home. I didn't want anyone to see me in my wet pants, and I didn't want to spend another second near Tracy and her friends. And if I ran, I could be home in just under 15 minutes. With everyone distracted by the storm, I walked in the opposite direction as Mr. Adrian. Just as I was about to open the doors leading to the staircase, I heard faint screams of children coming from the bottom floor. Not playful screams, but screams of terror. I stopped in my tracks, then slowly backed away from the doors.
What was that?
Someone yelled behind me. It was Tracy's voice.
Something just entered the school.
Everyone wanted to know what she had seen.
Oh my god. I don't know.
She said while everyone in the hallway surrounded her, not unlike how they used to every time she had something to say.
It looked like one of those gross bugs you find crawling around in the ceiling sometimes. You know?
What?
One of the boys said.
You mean like a centipede?
Yes! Like, that was literally what it looked like.
Tracy exclaimed.
But it was so much bigger.
She was tearing up.
How big?
Rebecca said.
Like a dog or something? No! Like a fucking bus?
Some people gasped, but a few others just laughed it off.
Guys!
I said, without anyone noticing me.
Guys!
I finally got their attention.
I heard screams coming from downstairs.
I think we should go inside the classroom and lock.
I was interrupted by the doors being kicked open behind me. It was Victor. His face was covered in blood. Everyone watched him walk through the hallway in silence, with a cigarette bouncing between his trembling lips. He walked over to his locker. I ran up to him, trying to get his attention. He shrugged me off as if he thought I was attacking him.
What's going on?
I asked, stepping back.
What did you see down there?
He fumbled with the key to the lock.
What I saw?
He finally got the locker opened and pulled out a black bag.
For one thing, there's a huge centipede in the mess hall.
He opened the bag and picked up a submachine gun that lay atop of a pile of magazines.
And when I say huge, I mean huge.
It was eating little Tommy,
So it's true?
said one of the boys who had been skeptical of Tracy.
Tommy?
Jacqueline exclaimed.
My little brother?
That's the one.
Victor said as he cocked the gun and hung the bag over his shoulder.
Oh my god. Tommy?
It's no use.
Victor yelled with contempt in his voice.
He's already dead.
Everyone went silent as the word dead echoed through the hallway. But Jacqueline didn't listen. She flung the doors open and ran down the staircase, yelling for her brother.
We need to get the fuck out of here.
Someone yelled, whereupon chaos erupted, while some ran for the restrooms and others for the classrooms.
Why are you keeping a gun in your locker?
Tracy carefully stepped forward. Victor closed his eyes as if annoyed by the question.
I like to keep it close.
The doors at the end of the hallway, opposite to the ones Jacqueline had used, opened. Mr. Adrian came inside with a hysterical smile on his face. Everyone still in the hallway froze. Mr. Adrian's eyes were covered with black goo, and he walked towards us with jerky, exaggerated steps, sometimes turning to the right and the left as if he was dancing. And just moments later, he spoke with an enthusiastic voice.
Children, it's all right. The sun is back.
The thunder rumbled as he spoke.
You're safe. Everyone's safe. We're ready. Hurry up and join us. Everyone, come to us. Follow me on my trail, wherever you will and wherever your heart will go. We are at the beginning of the sun's return. Everyone, come to us. We are at the beginning of the sun's return. Children, do not be afraid. I've come to.
Everyone ran in the opposite direction, panicking at the sight of Mr. Adrian. Victor, though, stood firm and pulled the trigger. The sound coming from its barrel drowned out everyone's screams. The next thing we knew, Mr. Adrian lay on the ground.
Stop!
Tracy yelled to the others.
He's dead.
No one listened. They either left the hallway or locked themselves inside a classroom.
He was already dead.
Victor said.
Look at the stuff on his face. It's still moving.
Slowly, the black goo slithered its way off Mr. Adrian's empty eye sockets and continued toward us across the floor like a large slug.
Let's not get too close to that, huh?
We need to hide.
Tracy said and walked over to our classroom and banged on the door.
Hey, guys, it's me. Open up.
No reply,
Hello? It's me, Tracy.
How do we know that?
said Rebecca from the other side of the door.
We've been talking, and there's just no way for us to know, seeing what happened to Mr. Adrian.
What the fuck, guys?
Tracy yelled.
Mr. Adrian was insane. It's me, for fuck's sake.
Give it up.
Victor said.
There won't be any rescue, so hiding is pointless.
I'm sorry.
Said Rebecca.
We can't risk.
A loud crash came from inside the classroom, then screams. Tracy stepped back from the door in shock, hesitated for a second, and then ran up to Victor and me. The screams didn't sound like what I would have imagined. It wasn't like in the movies. They expressed so much more than mere panic. Aside from that, there were also mortal fear and gut-wrenching sorrow, as they all collectively faced something that must have been unimaginable. Victor slowly pointed his gun at the classroom door. The handle moved as someone tried to unlock it to escape. Victor immediately ran up to the door and pushed it back.
Help me!
He yelled.
I can't hold it forever.
I joined him.
Let me out!
Rebecca begged from inside.
Please, please.
Tracy tried to pull us away from the door.
What the fuck are you doing?
She yelled.
Let them out!
You wanna let that bitch out?
Victor said as he used all his strength to keep the door shut.
She didn't let you in just moments ago.
She's my friend.
We can't let whatever's in there out.
I said.
Don't you get it? Something must have come through the windows.
Victor said.
I think.
Wait.
Tracy said.
Listen, they're not screaming anymore.
She was right. The pressure on the door was gone as well. I took a breath of relief, only for a chill to come down my spine. As I noticed that while their screams had died out, they were still moving around inside the classroom. We heard their footfall as desks and chairs were pushed around. It was just as if they had all gone mute. Then, in a swift movement, just when we let our guards down a little, the classroom door was kicked open. Everything happened in a few seconds, but it felt like minutes. Everyone inside came storming out into the hallway, their eyes covered with the same black substance that we'd seen on Mr. Adrian's face, and they were dancing, as if possessed. They moved towards us like marionettes performing a deranged ballet. In complete silence, they moved their bodies beyond the limits of the human anatomy, and in doing so, smashed their limbs into each other and the walls around them. Victor fell to the ground, firing his gun upwards to no avail. Both me and Tracy grabbed him and pulled him away from them so that he could get up on his feet.
Run!
I yelled.
Fucking run!
Victor quickly stopped to grab the keys of Mr. Adrian's body. And as soon as we came to the staircase, he made sure to lock the doors to the hallway. It wouldn't hold for long, but it gave us some time.
We can't go down.
I said.
Should we go to the roof?
Yeah, let's do that, Victor said. We ran up the stairs until we reached the computer room at the top, from where we could then enter the roof from the windows. These premises had been used as an attic back in the day, so the door was made from metal and was a bit more robust. Just moments after we had locked it, we heard our classmates on the other side of it. It wasn't until now that they broke their eerie silence. They all spoke in unison, as if they were one and the same.
Open the door. Don't be afraid. Please. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm your friend. I need to help you. Please. Open the door. I can help you if you don't open the door.
Go away!
Tracy exclaimed.
Please, just go away.
Come on and play with me. Please. I want to play with you in the sun. We will love you, and you will love us. Come out and play with me. I just want to play in the sun. I promise we won't hurt you.
Don't talk back to them, Victor said. They're creeping me the fuck out. The town spread out before me as I stared out the windows. It wasn't until now that I fully understood how dire our situation truly was. Pillars of smoke rose from almost every block. Hadn't it been for the downpour, the entire town would have probably been on fire by now. The strange mountain range in the distance was clearer now, and a large heavenly body, the likes of Saturn, hung over it behind the clouds as a giant pale disk. It wasn't the sky that had disappeared earlier. It was our town, and it had appeared here beneath this alien overcast. I thought about Mom and Dad. I couldn't see our house from this vantage point, but I could not imagine it being in any better shape than the buildings before me. These thoughts were interrupted by a sight that inspired not only fear, but a sense of inevitable doom. Something unfathomably large appeared behind the mountains. It was partly hidden behind a mist, but its form was still easy to distinguish as it came crawling over the mountains. not unlike a lizard besieging a boulder. It was gray, but its deformed human-like face was covered in black. Most likely, although I didn't think of it at this moment, it was the same substance as the one on our classmates' faces. A forked tongue slid in and out of the beast's toothless mouth as it slowly navigated toward the town, causing avalanches with every step. I called out to Tracy and Victor. My gun won't be of much help against that. Victor sat down on a chair. I'm tired,
What's going on?
Tracy yelled.
Is this hell? Are we in hell? I need to get home to my little sister.
She turned toward the door. Then, realizing what waited on the other side, she spun around and dashed toward the window. I know what's going on, Victor said, spinning in his chair. I saw it. It happened the exact second they turned on the new cell towers. I stood right next to it. It made this electrical sound, like a buzzing. Some sparks shot out the top of it, and then, bam! The sky changed. The entire town was transported to another world? I said. Because of the cell towers?
What are we going to do?
Tracy said.
I want to go see if my sister's okay.
And who's stopping you? Victor said. Your sister's probably eaten or turned into one of those things, though. Tracy collapsed and cried.
You don't know that. You don't know that.
She repeated this several times between her sobs before she asked once more.
What are we going to do?
I used to fantasize about her death daily, but at this moment, I felt sorry for her.
I have an idea.
I said.
If it's true what you said about the cell tower, then maybe we can try and get to it and... I don't know. Mess around with it and see what happens.
I suppose, Victor said. Yeah, it's worth a shot.
You really think that would work?
Tracy looked at me, a bit more hopeful.
I don't know,
I said, a bit hesitant to meet her eyes. Victor snorted. I always thought you were all a bunch of NPCs.
What's that supposed to mean?
I asked. Nothing. He nervously caressed the side of his gun. I didn't expect you would drag me out of their grasp like that, I guess.
What's the safest way to the cell tower?
Tracy asked, changing the subject. We need to get to the gymnasium, Victor said. That way we need to spend as little time as possible outside. Although, we'll have to run across the schoolyard.
Well,
I said, trying to amass some courage.
Let's get going so that we get there before the giant monster reaches the town.
I looked out. The creature was still slithering down the mountain. It moved just as strange as Mr. Adrian had done. The voices on the other side of the door were getting agitated.
Just come out and play. The sun has returned, and you need to see it to open your eyes and feel alive again. You need to feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, to breathe in the fresh air, to see the sky. Please just come out and play with us. We know you're there, we know what you're up to, and we know that you can hear us. But we're not going anywhere until you come out and play with us. Come on and play with us.
Victor got up and opened one of the windows. The wind forced itself inside. It smelled like rotten eggs and burnt rubber. We climbed out on the roof beneath the window. The otherworldly rain whipped me in the face. It left a chemical taste in my mouth and orange trails on my skin. Dead, mutilated kids lay scattered across the yard. In the middle, there was a large ball of flesh, covered in pulsating holes. Black, eel-like creatures slid in and out of them.
What is that thing?
Tracy asked.
It's disgusting.
That word again. Said with the exact same tone as when used to describe me. Did I really evoke the same level of disgust as that abomination?
It looks like some kind of nest made out of children's flesh.
Victor said.
Look, you can even see body parts sticking out of it.
You think it's dangerous?
I asked.
Most certainly.
Victor said.
Those snakes, or whatever they are, they'll be difficult to aim at once they attack. We'll have to run past it as fast as we can.
We used a drain pipe to get down to the schoolyard. Victor took the lead, and I followed. At that moment, there was a crash coming from the computer room. Our classmates, they had torn down the door somehow. Tracy hurried down the pipe above me, panicked.
They're coming!
She yelled.
Hurry up!
I tried to move faster, but the pipe was slippery, and I was afraid of falling.
Come on!
She looked down at me.
There's something else with them.
Our classmates appeared at the edge of the roof, yelling.
Oh, not even until you play with us. So we might as well do it. We just want to have some fun. We're not here to hurt you. The sun is finally back. We need to have some fun before the summer's over. Please, play with us before it's too late. The sun and fun are waiting, so please, play with us.
Then, 2 oversized wood lice appeared behind them and came crawling down the wall. Tracy yelled at me from the top of her lungs.
Why are you always so slow? Move!
Victor had already reached the ground. I was close enough to jump, but Tracy wasn't. But she had to. Nonetheless, the bugs were just too quick. She sprained her ankle, maybe even broke it, but somehow she still managed to get up on her feet. Victor fired at the giant bugs, but the bullets bounced off their scales.
Run!
He yelled.
Run!
Tracy limped forward as quickly as she could, but the bugs were gaining on her as they zigzagged their way toward us.
Wait!
I yelled to Victor.
She's hurt.
He came back, and we quickly put Tracy's arms over our shoulders and began to run with her hanging between us. The eels within the ball of flesh shot out of it and slithered their way toward us. Victor's gun echoed between the buildings as he tried to hit them. The bugs behind us were just about to reach us when one of the eels attacked them. The rest was coming for us, but after each gunshot, they moved back as if afraid of the sound. The doors to the gymnasium were locked. Victor gave me Mr. Adrian's keychain and proceeded to replace the magazine in his gun. He then fired at the eels to keep them at bay. I fumbled with the keys, desperately trying to find the right one. Tracy begged me to hurry up, talking right into my ear, stressing me.
Just shut up! For once in your life, just shut the fuck up!
I said, and she went silent. It should have made me happy, but I was too terrified to even reflect on it. My hands, they trembled as I tried, key after key.
I'm wasting ammo, and they're getting closer.
Victor yelled. Faint explosions erupted in the distance, and then there was a loud screech that must have been heard across the entire town.
What was that?
Tracy asked.
It's the giant one.
I said,
It's here.
and at that very moment, one of the keys finally turned, and I flung the doors open.
Holy shit!
Victor had turned around, looking into the gymnasium.
It's right there.
The cell tower had fallen on the building and was now leaning inside through a large crack in the wall. The rain poured through the crack while sparks kept shooting out the top of the tower. A strange blue light filled half of the gymnasium, stopping right where the cell tower poked inside. It was as if the fallen tower divided the entire room in two. Faint music came from the light. The song that was playing was "A Million on My Soul."
What is that light?
I whispered.
And that song?
Another world.
Victor continued.
You might have been onto something. It's like the cell tower is projecting it.
We ran into the light. It was warm, somehow electric, but nothing happened.
I think one of us has to climb up to the cell tower after all.
Victor said. We both looked at him, waiting for him to do it.
Don't look at me.
He said.
I'll cover you from down here.
We exited the light and returned to our side of the room.
I'm not going up there.
Tracy snapped.
If anyone should go up there, it's fine.
I said.
I'll do it.
The ground shook as the giant beast from the mountain walked through town. It was getting closer. I ran to the wall bars that stretch all the way up to the ceiling. They were wet and cold and difficult to hold on to.
Hurry up, they're trying to break through the door.
Tracy said. I climbed. My mind kept repeating that my body wasn't built for this, but I kept climbing, nonetheless. Once I'd reached the top, sparks from the tower hit my face.
What do you see?
Victor yelled. I squinted my eyes to protect them from the sparks. There was a half-open compartment attached to the structure. Yellow Neutral was written on it, beneath some corporate logo. I carefully opened it, afraid of being electrocuted. Inside, with wires connected to it, there was a large organism, reminiscent of a rolled-up worm. It didn't look like it had crawled in there by mistake, but rather had been installed as if part of the electronics. It slithered around a small board with switches, buttons, and dials.
There's a creature inside.
I yelled back. I slowly reached for one of the dials. The worm moved, as if aware of my presence, but remained mostly still. As I slowly turned the dial, Tracy yelled.
It's working. The music's getting louder.
I was getting tired in my arm. If I fell to the ground, I would break my legs, if not worse. The dirty rainwater, mixed with my sweat, kept getting in my eyes. It burned. No matter how much I tried to wipe it off, I turned the dial even further.
Keep going.
Victor yelled.
Something's fading into view.
I moved it slowly, terrified of touching the worm.
There.
Tracy yelled.
It's in focus now. Come down.
The music was blasting now, just as if it was playing in the same room.
Wait for me.
I said as I descended the wall bars. They didn't reply. When I came down, I found them just staring there, into an alternate version of the gymnasium.
Why are you just standing there?
I ran toward them.
Let's go to the other side and shoot that fucking thing inside the tower. You can aim from the ground, right?
I stopped myself right next to them. It was sunny outside the windows on the other side. The same spring day that we had left behind. But something was wrong. There was blood on the floor. Then I saw the bodies. First, the ones spread out across the floor, and then everyone sitting in the stand.
That's me.
Tracy whispered and pointed at the body, all dressed up for the show.
And there's Mr. Adrian, and right next to him, I think that's you. It's us. All of us. What in the...
I began. A shape suddenly came into view in front of us. It was Victor. His face looked dead, pale as if in shock, yet somehow indifferent. It was splattered with blood. He held his gun firmly. A faint sound of police sirens could be heard behind the music. I looked at Victor at our side, and a tear came down his cheek. Their eyes met, and two bursts erupted from both of their guns, and they both fell to the ground.
I got the fucker,
Victor said, and I and Tracy leaned over him.
I'm sorry.
His breathing was irregular, and blood came gushing out from beneath the hand he pressed to his belly.
Are you going to do that?
Tracy asked.
If this hadn't happened?
It was my birthday today, he said.
That wasn't you.
I said, trying to comfort him. Yes, it was.
I regret it.
For what it's worth.
Look,
You need to get in there and throw your bodies over to this side. I'll stay here and blow that box in the tower away, okay?
No.
I begged.
In this world, you saved us. You don't deserve...
Tracy ran to the other side and began dragging her body. Help her, Victor said. There's no future for me there. I'll be locked up for life. either in prison if we dispose of my body, or in a lab as a mysterious clone if we don't. You get it? This is the end of the road for me. No. I whispered, but I knew he was right. Then, a giant slimy leg came through the roof a few meters away from us. It was the monster from the mountains. Its screech was deafening.
Go!
Victor yelled.
We can't let anything from here enter that world.
I joined Tracy and helped her drag her own body through the rift. Then we ran to my body and dragged it across the floor as fast as we could. It left a long trail of blood which would certainly appear strange to the people finding it. As soon as we threw it into the hostile world, Victor called out to Tracy. Hey. Blood had appeared around his mouth, and his voice was getting weak. Don't treat people like shit anymore, okay? I looked at Tracy. She didn't say a word. We stepped back, and Victor took aim at the tower. Behind him, our infested classmates entered the room and danced toward us with their twisted movements and unhinged pirouettes. And at the same time, the giant monster poked its grotesque head inside the hole in the ceiling and stuck its disgusting tongue out as if to taste what was happening inside. Happy birthday to me. Victor opened fire on the cell tower, and in less than a second, the rift, and everything on the other side of it, vanished, and revealed the rest of this version of the gymnasium. The other Victor lay dead in front of us, shot in the head. Next, the police came barging inside. I was sitting at the back of an ambulance at the parking lot, with a blanket over my shoulders, when my parents appeared in front of me. They were so happy to see me. At that moment, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Displaced, yet home, guilty, yet victimized, orphaned, yet embraced by my parents. It felt like my mind was being torn apart as I cried into their arms. Over time, my conflicting emotions stabilized. I thought less and less of my real parents, the ones that I had left behind. I still think about them sometimes, though. And when I do, I wonder for how long they survived in that horrible world. To everyone's surprise, Tracy stopped being mean. We became friends, bonding over our shared trauma, and she even cut out Rebecca from her life, who had survived the shooting. She never understood why, but we knew. And for us, that was enough. Everyone remembers Victor as a monster here. They're not wrong, of course, but I still miss the man that was hidden within him, but never materialized in this world. The man who sacrificed himself to keep this entire world safe from the darkness at the other side of the thin fabrics of our reality.